Our previous video on beginning to assemble the Borax wagon front axles brought us this far along. Now to continue the building of the front axle, we actually have to digress just a little bit. I'm going to disassemble our axle by taking the axle hounds back out. These were all previously fitted to make sure they were in their correct position. But now we're going to put them together, and this will be a permanent assembly. So we're going to take the hounds out. We're going to take the axle cap off the axle. And what we need to do is actually bed this axle cap permanently onto the axle. So what I'm doing is applying some Titebond 3. It's a permanent wood glue. It's a waterproof glue. It doesn't necessarily bond well with the steel. It does well with the wood. But what it does is it gives it a 100% contact, the axle cap with the axle itself. So we use the kingpin to make sure we are lined up in the proper position. We're going to put the bottom plate of the fifth wheel on, and then take pipe clamps and actually start to apply pressure of the axle cap down to the axle. We want enough glue on there that we actually start to squeeze the glue out. And if you look real close, you can start to see it dripping out. So I'm going to wipe that off. But this is to give us 100% contact with the wood to the axle. We're going to put clips on, and this is the diagram of how we're going to build the clips. We're going to take some 1/4-inch flat plate, and we're going to cut off the top, what will be the top curved part of the axle clips. We have two different sizes. One is 8-inch and one is 10-inch, and we've got our circles cut off. So I'm going to put these through a shear and take off the excess corners. It just saves a little time in grinding and sanding. This is a hand operated shear. It's just like a great big scissor. Works well on steel up to about 3/8 of an inch thick. We're going to just take off the corners. This just has a long lever on it and just big pair of scissors. Once we get the corners off, we're going to take it to the sander where we have a zirconium belt, and we're going to round off the corners down to our mark we put on with the compass, so we have a round end. And when these are all rounded off, we'll take a 7/8 round rod that we have threaded, and we'll weld these onto the ends of these plates and then bend them around to where they fit the contour of the axle. Now underneath the axle clip and underneath the axle, there's a steel bar that the clip goes through, an axle clip bar. These are 3/4-inch thick, 2-inch wide, and we have the corners beveled off, and we'll drill a hole in them. And this will what the clip will actually go through and fasten to the axle itself. So we're going to put the first two clips on. Get the right one in the right position here. And this will aid in replacing the pipe clamps. One goes on either side of the fifth wheel. I'm going to tap those down in position. They're a nice tight fit. Now we'll take our clip bar and put it on underneath, put our nuts on, and begin to cinch it down even tighter than the pipe clamps will do. And we'll notice when we start to increase the pressure, tighten up the axle cap to the axle that more glue will start to kind of squeeze out. And we'll take and just wipe that off and go ahead and allow that to dry and set up. So we can remove our pipe clamps and get ready for next step. What we're going to do is get our axle hounds ready, and since the next set of clips goes through the axle hounds, we're going to pre-drill the holes that the 7/8 rod will go through. These axle hounds are 4 inches thick, so we'll again go from both sides, meet in the middle. And we'll get both of these done, and you can see here they're ready to go. So we'll start to assemble the first one, and just like we did in the first video of the beginning to assemble the axles, we'll put our pipe clamps on and we'll begin to pull that in position. Now it's already pre-fitted, so we're just going to pull it up to where our holes are in the right position, which we have marked here. We want to have the correct the correct spacing both front and back. And we're going to do this to both sides. We'll put the other axle hound in also. Bring it up with a set of clamps. Make sure we have our holes in the proper position. Now we can go ahead and begin to put on our second set of axle clips. These have been pre-bent, pre-fitted, so they're going to slide right through the axle hound. Tap it down into position. And these clips are actually what fastens permanently the axle cap to the axle itself. We'll put in our kingpin, make sure it's all lined up, and we'll put the other half of the fifth wheel plate. So underneath these set of axle clips takes a long bar. This creates a bridge work for strength underneath the axle, and also acts as the axle clip for the second set of, or the axle bar, the clip bars for the second set of axle clips. So we're going to drill a 7/8 hole for these axle clips. And then because they come under the axle, they have to be bent up to where they fit from underneath the axle up to and fasten to the bottom of the axle hound. So we have to take and put the right bend, and these actually took a little while because they're you get the two bends, the one bend at the axle and the other bend up at the axle hound, and it took a little fitting. But here I have a pattern of light steel that I pre-bent, so I knew kind of what my angle needed to be. And here we have the angle and the clip bar part of the bridge that will go underneath the axle. So the forward part of this bridge iron has to come up to the tip of the axle hounds. So I've lined out where the holes need to be, and we're going to pre-drill that with a 1/4" drill. That'll help us to line up the holes when we put the bridge work underneath. Now here you can see the bridge irons are shaped and ready to go on. They're going to clip up underneath the axle clip. We're going to put our nuts on. This is there's one that goes forward, one that goes back. We're putting on the back one here. Clamp it into place, tighten down the nuts. And this is the final assembly of the axle hounds into the axle cap onto the axle. And this bridge work adds a significant amount of strength in the front axle to the axle hounds. So this is what we look like with our bridge work on. Do both axles the same. Now the second set of irons, the next set of irons is going to be the stabilizer bars. This is what they look like when they're finished. And this is the process we took to do it. We started out putting our flat plates where they needed to be, front and back. The center part of this stabilizer bar is 1¼ square stock solid steel. So we're going to take it to the forge and begin to put the 90-degree bend on the pieces where they're going to come down to the flat irons that we saw just previously. This is, like I said, 1¼ solid square stock. And this is a process that involves more than just bending it. Because of the size of the iron, it needs to be upset, which means it needs to be compressed back on itself so that it has a tight and a square full corner. So what I'm doing is moving the iron back into the corner of the steel. We'll put a flatter on it and take out some of our hammer marks that we've been working on it. Take off all the loose scale. You can see the tight square corner that we have here finished. I want to check, make sure that we're square. Do some final adjustings. And here we have the ends where they come down to the flat bar on our stabilizers, and we're going to do this on all 4 corners, and of course for both wagons. So we end up having 8 of these, and you can see they're bent here. And this is how the corner looks as it's built into the stabilizer bar, and this is the position that they'll be bolted into. On the top of the 5th wheel plate, we'll take that off, and here the bolster will actually go to that top 5th wheel plate, and we're going to scribe it onto the iron. It has a little bevel that comes down and fits up to the iron, so we're going to bevel that off so we don't have any sharp corners. Beveled down to the iron, and then it has to get drilled to accept the bolts that go through the 5th wheel plate up through the bolster, and then there's a top plate that it'll be fastened to also. These are all 1/2" bolts, so we're going to drill again starting from one direction and turn around, go back from the other direction, and meet in the middle. So the ends get a bolt. I'm going to drill these by hand. And the top part of this bolster has been routed out to accept the standards, and you saw these in a previous video how we made those. So these are going to fit down to where the top of the standard is flush, one for each side, and this is what will keep the wagon box in place from side to side. and there is a top plate that goes on top that will carry the weight and take the wear of the box itself. So we're going to make sure our bolts fit. We're going to clean up our holes. Now the bolts through the center, there's 4 bolts through the center that will all receive nuts. But the 2 out on the end will be actually riveted into place. The box frame will sit in this position so a nut would be in the way. In the center of this bolster, to help strengthen the whole of the kingpin, we have each has a pair of iron on it, and because these accept a carriage bolt, one set of the iron has to have a square hole. So we're going to take a square drift punch and we're going to square up the hole so that the square head underneath the head of the carriage bolt has a place to set into this iron plate. So this is just the process of taking a round hole, making it into a square hole so it can accept the carriage bolt head. And these are the irons as they're finished, and we'll go ahead and put those on, and this will strengthen the kingpin on the front bolster. And this is what it looks like when it's assembled. Next, we're going to put on the rear stabilizer bar. The rear stabilizer bar is what keeps the axle from rotating forward when the weight of the tongue is placed upon it. The back axle reach will come above this bar, and it will keep the front axle from pivoting kind of a nosedive forward. So these have their own special axle clips. They are bolted into place. And this stabilizer is how it looks here. Now next we need a set of clips that goes on the outside of the axle cap, and these have a hook to them. These clips are made out of 3/4 inch thick by 2 inch wide steel, and the ends have to be drawn down to a 7/8 rod. They aren't welded on, but they're actually forged out of this 3/4 by 2 steel. And the process here was to draw it down in the trip hammer, bringing it down to eventually we have a 7/8 rod, and this is the process that we took here. This takes multiple heats, going back and forth from the forge to the trip hammer. The camera tends to focus on the bright of the steel and gets darker in the back. But you can see we're drawing it out into length here, getting it into a rough, kind of a rough end round position. This isn't true round. Next we'll put it into a fuller that will actually make it round. This is a top and bottom plate with a 7/8 hole formed through the center of it. It will actually make this to a true round 7/8 rod. This takes a couple times to do it, so I'll actually go back to the forge, reheat up again, and do the final finish 7/8. And here you'll see the fourth of the ends of the 4 clips that we'll need. Well, each of these clips have a hook on them for the stay chains, which is a Limiting chain for the purpose of restraining the double tree so it doesn't swing too far. So this we also drew out of a 1-inch square stock. Drew it 2 round. You see the bottom of it is square, and this is kind of a mortise tenon into the flat stock, and we are forge welding it through into this 3/4 by 2 axle clip. This takes several heats again to finish this forge weld. So it's kind of a combination riveting, but in the process of riveting we're also welding it into place. Now once it's welded into place, we'll take the end of that bar and we'll actually form our hook for the stay chain. Get here close, we're going to check our size, see if we are close to it. Go back in, take another heat, do our final adjusting. We're using a little lighter hammer here. We're taking out our hammer marks, taking off the scaling. This is kind of the finished cleanup work of our hook. Once the hooks are done, we went ahead and formed the axle clip so that they will fit the axle. And this is what they ended up looking like finished. Now one of these clips goes on the outer end of each axle cap. This is a real heavy clip, and it takes a lot of stress on it. That's why it's a 3/4 inch thick. But there's one that goes on each side. In the center where the reach is, there's also a set of irons. Has a pull plate, another axle clip, and another plate that strengthens the kingpin. This is put into place, and again the plate put on the bottom and the clip on the top, and you can see here the center iron assembly. And this pull plate is part of how these wagons are pulled when the mules are hitched to them. Now the clip bar to these outside axle clips with the stay chain hooks is also part of the queen bolt brace. The queen bolt is the bolt that goes through the tip of the axle hounds that the axle, or that the tongue itself, will pull by. So these rods will support that queen bolt and also function as the clip bar for these outside axle clips with the hooks. When these are in place, the final iron is a clevis that goes on each side of the axle hounds, which actually will get pulled on by the mules. So this is the finished iron work of the front axle. We put some oil on it, and this is what it looks like when it has been finished. Thank you for your interest, and thank you for watching.